That's right. Maxonomic, our chair sponsor here at the SPL. Well, before I go on, first of all, Mac, looking absolutely adorable here today. Agro, do you remember what we talked about the last time I saw Mac on stream?
Yeah, you were saying that you wanted to get a dog as well because she was so cute, so I thought you might want to see her.
I did. I did say that. I do want to see her, and, well, actually, ladies and gentlemen at home, and Agro included, I have someone I want you guys to meet right now. She is
No way.
Soft and cuddly, very
No
squishy,
way.
And she has taken my heart over. Her name is Max, short for Maxonomic, our chair sponsor here at the SPL. My neck pillow is soft and squishy and absolutely cuddly. It came with my chair here. Maxonomic, our chair sponsor at the SPL, but what more? I get an exclusive ward chin when ward skin. I guess a ward on your chin is great as well, but a ward skin in game now. If you order the SMITE Maxonomic chair, needforseat.com, and they'll take you the
Dave, you're telling me that you made Mackenzie think that she was going to have a new best friend that she could hang out with and go to the dog park with and all that kind of stuff. And it was an admittedly comfortable pillow instead.
Yes.
That's what you're telling me.
Yeah. I am telling you that. And
look at her.
Look of betrayal. I know.
Look.
What direction is that? Mac, I'm sorry. Maybe one of these days I'll, that's heartbreaking. How am I supposed to feel good about my bit when that's licking me in the... I can't. Mac, I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry.
What's that? You can't stand to look at Dave any longer? Okay. All right. I guess you don't... She doesn't want to look at you anymore, Dave. Look, she can't wait. You disgust me.
In a way, she's turning around. I can see her. She's waiting.
Move on with the death segment. I want to talk about
we'll move on. We'll move on. It's Sanguine versus Obey here to round out the day on Friday up against Sanguine. An important one, really, for both squads. Sanguine looking to tie up Ghost in that third-place spot. Obey obviously got a win a couple weeks ago, looking to keep that momentum going. Here's how your standings look at the moment. So, actually, you look towards Obey. The Knights are going to be playing tomorrow. Renegades. I mean, this is really to get Obey right back in that mix, tied for 5th even, potentially jumping up there. So let's talk about this Obey squad. Consistent improvement is what we saw in the first few weeks, finally culminating in a win. What have you seen from this squad since then? Do you think they stand a pretty good chance against this Sanguine squad today?
I think that Obey has definitely started to look a lot better, and it's really been centered around how well Sino and Wolfie have been playing. Those two in particular have really impressed me here in phase number 2. This raw pick for Wolfie really has come out of nowhere and started to be a very, very strong pick for them, and it's really been because of the enabling that Sino is doing on that front line. Even though chat might not want him to continue to play Warriors, Erlong Shen in particular has proved to be very, very effective for Obey. And that's what I want to see from them here today, is this continued prioritization of gods that allow Sino to be the pace setter for them. Gods like a Willix, things like that, they're a little bit, even though they can be aggressive, they can be the first ones in, they just don't bring that same level of setup. And while I'm not asking Sino to play Athena jungle, I do think gods like Erlong Shen are going to be much more conducive to Obey winning games than the Sino solo carry project.
And I want to flip that coin a little bit, talk about kind of Sanguine, the similar aspect from Sanguine, and really hinging on Panatom. Admittedly, a slow start for Sanguine also was built on a slow start to this phase for Panatom, but over recent weeks, he's kind of picked up that pace. This Thor pick has been paying off in dividends for this guy. Out of the jungle, Netrioid, I think, has started to hit some momentum here as well. Who do you think needs to step up for Sanguine to give them the best opportunity to find a win today?
Your identification of Panatom is a solid one, because that's who I'm going to go with. Really, because, and this is a bit unlucky for Panatom, he's surrounded by a lot of really, really consistent players. And being consistent is great, but it's not the best quality you can have necessarily. You know, that explosiveness that Panatom brings is really key part of what makes Sanguine such a great team. So I don't want to frame it as if the team is losing, it's on Panatom, because it's not. It's never on one person. But sometimes in those struggle moments, people tend to look at him because Shinto and Netrioid and Rongyu and Yarkor are oftentimes going to continue to do their jobs. I think that Sanguine has really turned the corner. They're looking a lot more like they did in phase number 1. A big win against Ghost last week, and I expect them to keep some momentum going into this week.
That's right. Remember, last time we saw Sanguine was this game right here that you see on your screen, a domination over Ghost in a couple back-to-back 30 or so minute games there. So Sanguine 2-0 over Ghost last time we saw them. Can you keep that momentum rolling forward? Up against Obey is now the next big question. And I wonder, Aggro, you start to look towards picks and bans here for game number 1, where that emphasis starts to ring true. We figured in our last set we'd see pretty heavy support focus because PBM and Aurora were in the same game, so a little bit not over the top. There were actually a lot of jungle bans, I think, in our previous game. Not surprising when you look at adapting in Sanford Soccer. Do you think anything out of the ordinary happens here as far as specific role bans, or are we going strictly tier list based throughout the first 6?
Well, already we see an interesting adjustment here by Sanguine. Obey showed a willingness to top pick this Cupid last week, and right away it gets banned here for Sanguine. Already that puts pressure on Rom as a pick. Where are we going to see that prioritized? We just watched Cyclone Spin first pick that against Ghost. If Obey choose to not leave anything up that's considered top tier, I could see Sanguine going that direction. But with this second target ban of Erlong Shen, this one pointed at Sino, I think Sanguine might be able to get themselves a very, very strong pick. And when you're in Obey's shoes in a situation like this, you see 2 target bans and not necessarily top of the tier list bans. You have to swap your pick and ban strategy so that there are going to be multiple picks open that you can take and abuse. So now, yes, Sanguine's going to get some form of Cthulhu or Nemesis or something like that. One of those top tier selections. Freya, Olarun, all still open. Obey's going to guarantee themselves they get at least 2 in this spot. But leaving Freya open against Netrioid is a scary, scary proposition. I'd be surprised if Sanguine went any other way.
That's right. Cthulhu's still available as well. So this is actually going to be a good microscope, I think, into where maybe that top pick priority lies. And it is Cthulhu now for Sanguine locked in. Do Obey answer back with the Freya, of course, is the next question there. I think the Hercules ban interesting for Sanguine as well. Obviously, Inbound has put in some good work on that god. I think Horus, of course, comes to mind when you look at Inbound in that support role, maybe where Obey looks to go later on in this draft. But kind of analyzing that first pick, Aggro, Freya versus Cthulhu, and now Freya versus Rom. Still could, I guess, see Rom or Freya elsewhere, maybe not as likely. Are you surprised at all with where we've seen those kind of priority trees break down?
Just in the sense that I know how much Netrioid has loved playing Freya in the past, I'm a little bit surprised that we don't see Sanguine take that, but they kind of call Obey's bluff, that Obey won't be the ones to take Freya, and they're right so far. I don't know how much Netrioid likes the matchup into Rom. Freya, very notoriously slow to start in the early game. Rom, fantastic wave 1 pressure, pretty much the best in the whole game. But Sanguine can get away with Cthulhu, Nemesis, Freya in the top 3, and I think we legally have to report that to the authorities if they get those first 3 picks. I don't know. I have to check the rule book, but I don't think that's allowed. I don't think so.
Who do we report to? Coop? Do we have to get on the phone with Coop and let him know? Yeah, somebody
Are the Lightning playing right now? Is Coop even available? I don't know.
Right, that was the question. If the Lightning are still, going strong right now in the playoffs, he, nowhere near his phone unless it's to retweet a Lightning goal. So, maybe AFK at the moment for Coop. Jingwei, though, locked in now for Sanguine. So again, a Freya being overlooked now. I mean, still the late game scaling, of course, with the Jingwei. It's hard to compare up against a Freya. But a Nemesis as well out of the jungle. Do you think that this is a pick here for Panatom that makes some sense?
Of course. Nemesis is just one of those picks right now that you can pick into pretty much anything save for Hebo Cupid and feel pretty comfortable. And Obey has not shown any willingness to play Hebo so far. Now, if you inspect their picks and bans, maybe they've been banning a lot of Nemesis. They haven't seen Nemesis against them. There's a lot of reasons why we might not have seen them pick that selection, but they leave the option open to Obey right there, and instead they take the Poseidon. Another god that can handle Nemesis okay, though not as well as Hebo. The cripple on the Whirlpool is good. You get 2 forms of canceling that Nemesis shield, one with the Tidal Surge, one with the Kraken. So you've got some options here. It's not a bad pick at all for Obey, but it's not the most traditional instant counter pick that we've seen for her.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with your line of thinking there on that one. The answer's back now in the second wave of bans for Obey. The Xingqian, Hebo, both taken away, and then a little jungle-centric maybe for Sanguine. Still tough to lock down Sino, figure out exactly what direction he wants to go with things. Also surprising, outside of the Freya that has now made her way through all 6 bans in the first 6 picks, is the Amaterasu that Obey didn't reach for in one of their first 3. So I think a couple interesting notes to look at here for both of these teams. Still needing something likely out of the jungle, still needing something out of the solo lane, and Kilcullen has been a popular answer to this Cthulhu as of late.
Has been. Pressure has been really the name of the game. Though Achilles was open, not taken here by Obey. I was expecting to go Wukong. They seem to really like that pick for Ducky, but maybe they're trying to branch out from that warrior and going a little bit more aggressive with that Kilcullen. Kuzenbo there for Rongyu to really make sure that Wolfie has the minimum amount of fun allowed in an SPL game, because Kuzenbo tends to do that to all backliners. I'm just looking at what Sino is going to pick here, and I'm thinking Naja might be his best option, but Naja has such a volatile matchup into this Nemesis, because once you get slowed as Naja, you're there. I mean, you don't have a way out besides using beads or that ultimate, and that can be a little bit scary, but the setup potential is there for the Poseidon. Sino is the premier Naja in the SPL. Achilles Jungle, on the other hand, does make some sense to me. Warrior there for Sino. Okay. We know how much he loves those, but that Execute can come into play nicely against Cthulhu. I like the pick.
And I don't think this is necessarily a misplay from Obey. I still find it shocking that Shinto is allowed to get this Merlin with the final pick overall from Sanguine. So much power really to take off the board. I mean, it's rocking a hard place, I think, especially when somebody like Shinto carries that much weight. So it's a Merlin for Shinto out of the mid lane. Strong draft aggro, maybe from both teams. Does one of them scream a little bit more consistent to you? Do you sway one way or the other here for game number 1?
I mean, there's so many comfort picks here for Sanguine. Shinto's Merlin. You've got Netrioid's Jingwei, the Cthulhu there for Yarkor. I think that Sanguine just has a stronger 5 characters on their side, but Obey has some tools. It's just a little bit higher execution. In almost all single-target CC. Horus single-target CC. Achilles pretty much single-target CC. You're not going to stun multiple people with that Shield of Achilles very often. I'm a little bit worried about Obey and their ability to catch up if they fall behind, but I think their composition has the potential to really snowball quickly.
We've seen Obey get off to some hot starts here as of late. Can they do it to Sanguine game number 1? Let's find out.
Well, thank you so much, Dave and Aggro. It's Miser here. And alongside me, it's going to be Mifflin. And Mifflin, we're coming into this one with some interesting twists. I mean, a Jingwei, which is great for Sanguine, the Cthulhu as well as the Nemesis getting picked up. I think Sanguine get 4, maybe 5 out of 5 that they really want. But for me, this actually feels like a pretty solid Obey draft. It just feels like something their team will flourish with because it's all gods that they play well.
Yeah, and Obey also drafted around their strength, which is the early game. They've got pressure out of mid through this Poseidon. Kilcullen's going to have a okay time in a Cthulhu. I'm not really confident in saying that anyone's going to have a good time in that lane. I really like this Achilles pick. Horus should be able to control the pace of the game relatively well. But as far as Sanguine's draft goes, man, I was surprised to not see the Freya get picked up. But Jingwei as a substitute, still with Nemesis, with Cthulhu, with Merlin, it is an absolutely oppressive team composition once they get to that 5-on-5 phase. And that seems to be the weakness of these early game teams, is that when they're matched up against something like this, are they really able to spiral their lead enough in the early game? Obey's struggled with it in the past, and now they're playing against potentially the best team fighting team in the league.
I'm excited to see what you guys in chat think as of right now, just because there's a poll up to see who you think will win this set. Sanguine, I think, have been the favored one all around. Everybody, on the pre-show being able to kind of say, yeah, probably Sanguine. I think chat, by and large, and everyone in-game typically leaning towards Sanguine. But I feel like, Mifflin, you're always the odd man out here. But I think you actually, originally, I kind of felt like it might have been a meme. But now I actually think there is some merit to Obey's performance, and I think today could be a good showcase of it. The last few times we've seen them play, it's only getting better, so there's a lot of weight behind them. It is, just as you said, maybe translating any of the early game control they can get into something late game that can maybe be more solid for them and actually become a big win, especially against a team like Sanguine, who I think right now are on a 3 streak.
Yeah, going into Sanguine on a heater when Obey we can call it a heater. They found their first win. That's a heater for us. Looking good in part 2 of the phase here. I think that Obey has a chance to beat just about any team in the league. Chat's memeing me already. I can smell it from here. But when you're an early game centric team like Obey, like Ghost Gaming, you can really put all your eggs in the basket of, okay, we get pressure in the early game, and that's how we're going to find our win. But it's such a volatile playstyle. We've already seen it earlier today from Ghost, where they drafted a bunch of pressure, they weren't quite able to find it, and they just kind of lost out cleanly to Radiance. I think that's a trapping that Obey can fall into against just about any team because they haven't quite reached Ghost Gaming's caliber. But I think it's good now that we finally do have that identity that we can associate with them. They're always looking for that early game pressure. They're always looking to invade, and that's how they try and win their games. Whereas when you compare them to other teams in the league that haven't quite found their identity, I'm looking at you, United, that's when you really start to see some concern.
So I'm wondering, coming into it, not only have they found their identity, but specifically, this draft feels like a lot of gods that they've played well in the past, and what I expect to see well here as we move forward into the set. But the thing that I'm wanting to ask you is kind of reflecting on what Aggro said as we came into the game, which was that there was a lot of single target high priority. And normally I think, man, there's 3 versions of single target. I can hit 3 people with single target, but do you think that's going to end up making it suffer throughout the duration of this game?
It's definitely going to make it harder come team fight phase, right? You want to have that AoE capability. If someone groups up, okay, whoa, they grouped up pretty poorly. We can look for this team fight. But it's going to help you out a lot in the picks phase. If you're pre-15 minutes in, find a lot of single target damage, you win your 1v1s, you can move it into an objective. As long as you're able to leverage it in the early game and move into an objective with a numbers advantage, then single target damage isn't really too damning for your team. But it is pretty difficult to play around once it is a 5-stack.
Well, we'll have to see if it can come to fruition here for Obey, or if it's all going to fall apart for them. And that's kind of the big thing, I think, moving forward. Rom has been a very big pick, but we haven't really gotten to see Wowie on it. His most success lately has been on Cupid. But as you can see, guys, there's some technical issues that are going on right now. So we're going to go to a quick break, make sure everything's working, and then we'll get right back into the game in just a few. And we're back! Just like that, in the blink of an eye, everything comes through. Come on, guys. Realistically, this game was scheduled to start at 5. We just needed to make sure it was as close to 5 p.m. as possible. And, when you make it happen, you make it happen. Either way, we're going to be going forward with it. And I'm excited for a lot of this one. But I think one of the things I was trying to touch on right before we had to take that break, Mifflin, is Wowie now on Rom. Cupid is the most picked god here for Obey. It's something they have first pick a lot in the last couple of weeks. Do you think this is going to change that playstyle? Is Wowie going to be able to show up and have that same performance that we've kind of gotten used to seeing out of him these last 4 games?
I think Wowie in particular is a hunter in the league that likes to play further back than any other hunter in the league, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. When he's on the Cupid, Fields of Love can be a very good ranged engage tool, make sure that you can get involved, find the heart bomb from a distance. But Rom brings a lot of that same energy. If he's the last one to get to a team fight, he's likely engaging it with his ultimate, so it should be fine.
All right, now inbound. Taking a lot of shots over here in the duo lane. Forced to fall back. There is going to be some healing over here, but normally, you know, we're on the conversation of Cupid. That's where those hearts would come in handy, right? You're low. You can help keep your support up. You get some mana off of it. It kind of helps feed into itself. Right now, inbound, unfortunately, going to have to wait until either his heal comes back or he's going to have to play the dangerous game over there in the duo lane. So it doesn't seem like Sanguine are going to give him much breathing room. Rongyu, specifically, already blinking forward for it. And they're looking to try and get a first blood here if they can find anything. He's still so low, and Rongyu just making sure he can't show his head over here. Even though you get the pressure from Rom, it seems like this Kuzenbo is kind of the equaling factor.
Yeah, this inbound is getting absolutely bullied right now. He's almost out of potions already, but he has had to trade out a lot of wrong-use potions in exchange, taking poke himself. So far, I expect that Obey Alliance's strategy for the duo lane is hang on by the seat of your pants, survive, hope that Sino gets off to a strong start. And I think that's a fair enough strategy considering the jungler matchup that we're looking at. Achilles versus Nemesis. Achilles has decent 1v1 potential. He's going to scale much better into the early game. I think if that's the strategy from Obey Alliance, power to you. It can absolutely work. Play around the 3v3 in mid, because that's where your strength is at.
We'll have to see if this is going to be able to pop off over here. It's a good stun already from inbound, and one of my favorites to see early on. As someone who loves playing Horus over here in the duo lane, that protection shred just always feels so nice when you can get it onto the tank and maybe get a little bit of extra pressure over here. But for Obey, again, it's more of something to find a stalemate, much like we see over here in the solo lane. Ducky, a little more aggressive than this Cthulhu, and I think that's starting to win them over. But you had mentioned Sino. As of yet, the jungle's been kind of quiet. We're starting to hit that level 3 mark, though, where they come online. Is there anyone he can gank with ease here? I mean, I don't think you're going to take down a Cthulhu, even at level 3, that easily.
Yeah, I think you're definitely waiting for around that level 5 point, especially if you are looking to gank a Cthulhu. We saw what Ghost Gaming was able to do with Achilles. Sure, he gets a ton of damage mitigation when he descends into madness, but doesn't really matter. If you're at 30% health, you might as well be at 0% standing in front of an Achilles. So I think that might be the strategy we're looking for here. Outside of that, ganking the duo lane could be easy if he's able to get over there before Netroid ticks over to level 5. But I don't think he's in any rush, especially considering it's a very interesting build we're starting to see from this Achilles. Finishes the Golden Blade. Makes me think that he's going to go a little bit more auto-attack centric, which is something we haven't really seen too much of. I'm not sure how well he's willing to really utilize that, but if he does decide to put on the armor from his passive, has this auto-attack centric build with a couple katanas, could make up for some of that lack of movement speed, make up for the fact that you're going to have to stick in the team fights a little bit longer. I'll be interested to see how Sino decides to run this game.
That was actually the fun conversation we got to have on the waiting room, which, was maybe a little short-lasted for the Achilles, but he has that flexibility kind of built into him, right? I mean, he can go for a more protection-oriented build. He can be kind of tanky there in the jungle and be maybe a tertiary frontliner for your team. He's not going to be as solid as Ducky and inbound, but he can at least take a couple of hits as he dives back in there. Or he can go the exact opposite route and kind of match this Nemesis and keep maybe pace for pace with her and just go straight for that damage, which could maybe play into that execute. But my eyes continually returning to the jungle and, well, who's in it? And right now it's Rongyu running around. I expected something to come out of it, but it seems like neither Sanguine nor Obey are going to be able to capitalize on the positioning. And so we're still at a little bit of a loss here. Does going slow favor either of these teams more?
As far as teams go, Sanguine every day of the week, right? They're the best team fighting team in the league. As far as team compositions, again, I think I have to give the edge to Sanguine. Once the team fight phase starts up, they've got a Cthulhu, they've got Nemesis, they've got Merlin, whereas Obey has a Cullen in the late game team fight, which is strong for bullying the back line, but not so much as far as team fight presence in that he can't heal like a Cthulhu does, he doesn't have the same amount of CC. I really think Obey needs to set off to a good start, but so far they've been farming the map incredibly well. We're looking at a 0-0 slash line 5 minutes in, but nearly 1,000 gold already in Obey's favor. All of that's been controlling the mid camps, the neutral objectives. They've been able to get the oracles a couple of times. It's been going relatively well, but I would say that anything that isn't a 3,000 gold lead in favor of the enemy team is almost always going to favor Sanguine.
This has been one of the interesting starts. I feel like Obey, this is very similar to what we see out of the top teams when they go up against each other. If it's not an outright brawl fest, it is those neutral objectives as you had highlighted. But I think it's funny, I remember me and you talking about it, and one of the best jokes I think we've got for the SPL was you saying that Sanguine 5,000 gold down can be the Sanguine lead, but right now they're looking to try and make it something in the early game. A little bit of aggression onto Sino. Nothing to be found. Yarkor has used his ult, so he's looking to get burned down here, but they force the same ult out of Ducky, so trade for trade in the solo lane. No kills just yet, but I think that's going to give the pressure back towards Yarkor, where he's kind of been lacking it so far over there.
Yeah, I think it really is going to be helpful for him, especially considering, look at what he's got backing him in the jungle. Panatom playing Nemesis decided not to finish Golden Blade, but instead finished off Warrior's Tabi incredibly quickly, meaning that even though he's playing a god that's not going to scale as easily into the early game as an Achilles, the relative value of these two picks are going to be a lot closer than they would have been otherwise. In fact, I would say that Panatom very likely has a higher damage output right now, whereas Sino is going to have a much easier time maneuvering around the jungle, clearing out buffs, making sure he's able to farm up quickly. That's an interesting trade-off to see, especially considering Achilles is a god that can get highly aggressive in the early game. If he decided to go down the Mace Tree route and pick up a Crusher or a Brawler's Beat Stick, he could very easily 100-0 just about anyone on the map at this point. But instead, we see Sino going this more farm-centric build. It tells me he's looking to outscale this Nemesis with a very interesting playstyle.
Well, he's got about 100, 200 gold there in the jungle. Very small lead over Panatom right now for Sino, and the same thing can be said actually in reverse. Netrioid slightly above Wowie as of right now. So everything kind of coming out maybe neutral. 400 gold separates the two teams, which at this point is buying some wards. You can see down there in Sanguine's inventory as well for inbound there on Obey. But this is that moment where I'm kind of waiting for the shooter drop, right? I feel like, especially around level 5, Kraken comes online, you get Sino in a good position with the execute. It feels like this is where Obey should be looking for some fights, or where Wrong Use may be going to find that one push that's just going to take someone completely out of position. But as of yet, no one's been getting aggressive enough for it. Blink now up there for Wrong Use, so maybe able to find something coming out of it with the support player. Or maybe it's going to be Sino's positioning. He's actually going to get away with stealing that experience camp away. And it's those little plays right now that are giving Obey this lead.
Giving him a small lead. What was nearly 1,000 has been cut to about 200 because Sanguine's been farming up a little bit better. Once they're able to degroup, they're able to just really split the farm a lot more efficiently. Netroid's been left largely alone, whereas Inbound has been splitting a lot of farm with Wowie. I think Sanguine's absolutely fine with the pace that's being set right now. I think the onus really is on Obey to try and pull a small lead. I think with Obey's draft, having this Achilles in the jungle, they need to be looking for early fights. You could say that Achilles has the best matchup into Cthulhu, so you might be waiting for around that 10-minute mark for the Pyromancer to spawn, and then you can look to target out this Cthulhu and then take the smaller of the two objectives. But even then, I really do expect to see Obey be the first one to aggress in this game.
It's kind of like you said, I can't think of many teams that want to be on par with Sanguine going into a late-game team fight. Would much rather have a 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, if you could afford it, 10,000 gold lead going up against them. And even then, that's never a true guarantee for yourselves. Although right now, having Netrioid on Jingwei, as opposed to things like the Freya that we've seen kind of box from a lesser level, maybe that's where your advantage can be found. But you have to have some sort of advantage. Yeah, that's the strength I think that has always come into it. And right now, it's a level in the jungle, which is the big significant difference, it feels like, for Obey. Unfortunately, in mid for Obey fans, it's going in favor of Shinto. And, I mean, we can talk about this guy's Merlin probably all day. We spent almost all of Phase 1 talking about it. Anytime it got locked in, it was one of the best performing mids we got to see here was Shinto. Consistently at top kills, I believe top KDA for a long time as well. And so not surprising to see him return to this, you know, already really solid mid pick that he has performed consistently high on.
Yeah, I mean, I might even just avoid talking about Shinto's Merlin right now because I know, and I trust him so much once the team fight phase starts up, that he's going to be able to make the plays that force us to talk about it. But so far, again, Sanguine's been getting away with this much lower pace, and I think it really is benefiting them greatly. Obey seem like they're really trying to wait for some sort of power spike to come their way, maybe that third item mark to really start to move in towards these objectives. Take a peek at Wolfie's build. He's going this more auto-attack-centric build with this Ring of Akate that could be just about any other item. It could be a Toxic Blade. He could be looking for a Witch Blade here as well if he's looking for additional survivability. I think that with this build, Obey is telling me again that they're looking for this incredibly objective-focused strategy. If Poseidon is able to close distance onto a Gold Free, given alone at any amount of time, he should be able to solo it out the second he wants to. It's whether or not Obey can find those opportunities to move into the neutral objectives.
Well, it's a very stylized play, and we've kind of seen it a few times here and there with Poseidon, and it brings up that conversation, I think, that it always will, which is Aegis versus Shell, but right now inbound, forced to fall back. Panatom lurking in the jungle, gonna go in with the ult, trying to lock down inbound before he can get away, and Shinto gonna get credit for the first blood on that one, no problem. Now, looking to chase down Sino, they get rid of his ult, but they can't get rid of the health bar. Now they're locked down, Wowie's rotated in, Panatom's just one hit away, Wolfie, credit for that one. Rongyu trying to save his life. Right now, he's just trying to get out alive. No mana to his name. Whirlpool coming down. The damage looks good for Wolfie, but it looks a little bit better here for Shinto. Coming in, one hit, and he's going to be able to walk away. 2 kills for the mid laner from Sanguine, and that's just maybe a little bit of an overcommitment from Obey.
That was a clean counter-rotation from Obey to get there after that engagement. Wolfie, unfortunately, only hits the outer edge of the Kraken on 3 members, so they weren't able to find that CC. Sino barely makes it out by the skin of his teeth, just doesn't take the tick damage from Shinto. But that play from Wowie to rotate in, find the kill, very well placed. The ultimate wasn't quite able to find its way home, so the damage output not being there allows Shinto to re-engage that fight, and a bit of an uncharacteristic, very aggressive roll-in from Wowie results in his death. So far, again, this game has resulted in a completely even state, even though Sanguine come out ahead 1 kill.
Well, I was going to ask you about specifically security for Sanguine as they move forward. Seems like kills are definitely going to be secured for them, but it was in this Aegis conversation. You always want one against, Poseidon, the Kraken, but if he's going auto attack, you have Rom over there as well. It kind of feels like Shell, especially upgraded, is going to be helpful. Blocksbacks are always nice. Do you like the idea, specifically from Netrioid and Shinto here, to go the Aegis over that, though?
I think so. Poseidon's auto attacks are almost never going to be nearly as impactful as his actual abilities just due to the nature of his kit. Sure, you could say that the Trident's really good, but even then, the second and third auto attack from that ability aren't actually auto attacks. So even then, Kraken's likely going to be the highest damage output thing he can do in this game. As far as I'm concerned, the auto-attack build on Poseidon is really only leaning itself towards looking for these objectives. You're looking to burn out objectives instantly and then use the Kraken to secure it. It kind of mitigates your team fight potential, but it allows you to play this much more Gold Fury or Fire Giant-centric playstyle.
Well, what was once 1,000 in their favor has now turned to 100 in favor of Sanguine. It's not a whole lot of gold that's going to be paving their way forward from this point on, but it's still something that Obey have to kind of fear, in my eyes. Giving Sanguine any room to grow is always going to end up, well, turning on you, especially when you take a path like that. I mean, that was just classic setup, good ambush, good ult, and a good kill there. Once again, going on to the Merlin. I mean, they read that like a book. You could see the wards, you could see the patience. Sanguine knew exactly what they were doing.
Inbound's always playing very aggressive on these corners. You can very easily check around, make sure nothing's going to come your way, but instead he walks in, gets immediately picked out, and we're already starting to see now what the damage output from this Merlin is going to look like. Divine Ruin and Spear of the Mag is available to him, just a little bit of CC, all it's going to take to confirm a kill on this support.
Oh, and they dare to start up a Gold Fury with Poseidon in the area, and Wolfie's not even going to be able to get into Kraken. Sanguine just confirmed that one, even though you could hear Obey lurking in the jungle waiting for it. Kraken, Rom Snipes, both great at stealing objectives. Seems kind of missed for Obey, maybe just a little slow on the rotation to catch up to that and not use either for the secure. And I'm waiting to see. They're dancing around this Pyromancer right now, Mifflin, but I don't know if they have what it takes to take it, especially with Yarkor in the neighborhood.
It's going to be really hard, especially considering, as you said, Yarkor is there. And even with this gold free going down, we're only seeing a 1,000 gold lead in favor of Sanguine, so I don't think Obey need to feel pressured to make these risky 50-50 plays around the Pyromancer. They need to be looking for picks and then utilize the build that Wolfie elected to go for. So I'm looking at inbound, I'm looking at Sino to get proactive, but so far the support and jungler from Obey have been largely conflict adverse.
Well, they're starting it up. There's going to be the Kraken, this time securing Pyromancer. Nothing Sanguine can do about that, and it looks like nothing they can do to follow up that Pyromancer either. No pushes for Rongyu available, no one in a good position for it. Tries to get a bank shot, misses everybody there. Unfortunate, as he threads the needle right before everyone who is recalling. But they are able to get aggressive, and they absolutely do so here in the jungle. You can see Panatom, Rongyu, and Netrioid all dancing around that red buff. And I think hoping for Wowie to make a mistake or some sort of misstep here. Most that I see them walking away with is a jungle buff.
Yeah, there's not too much to look for anywhere on the map. Both of the easy-to-acquire neutral objectives have been cleared out. But this is a pretty sick staring match, and Bobby might be on the tail end of it.
Well, it's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Inbound doesn't get picked up that time. I think knew what was coming, had seen Rongyu kind of doing his dance, but Panatom going around the back. There's going to be the blink looking for Wolfie. Aegis forced out. Is they're going to be able to get in there, and the Whirlpool doesn't even matter. Inbound not able to save the day. It's a little too late. Panatom's low. Execute threshold in range, but it's going to be Inbound who picks up the kill onto the jungler. Rongyu looks to get out of here. Snipes coming down from Wowie with the rotation. No mana available here for Rongyu. Good knock-up from Ducky to make sure they can keep the CC going, but it's not going to be enough. Yarkor is rotated in. He's looking for more now that he has his team behind him, but no one's available. They can't lock anyone down. It seems like Obey are going to get away with this, but Sino's taken a precarious path in the jungle. He's about to get spotted out by the solo laner.
I like the playstyle there. Sanguine immediately recognized that Sino has rotated into their map, and now Yarkor is going to be looking for that solo kill, and he might just have it with the CC lockdown. No ultimate available for Sino to escape out of this, but Yarkor realizes not quite enough movement speed to keep up with a katana and the boots on the side of Achilles. That whole engagement starts with that staring contest on the top left mid camp, and immediately we saw Wolfie tries to step up and make sure that Inbound makes it out alive with his Whirlpool. So instead of Shinto throwing his damage at the support, he immediately capitalizes on Wolfie's misstep and drops him to 50% health, which opens up Sanguine for that tower dive. Clean play, fantastic target selection, and they pick up a mid tower on the tail end of it as well.
I mean, all in all, getting to come out ahead. Panatom was kind of the one under the magnifying glass coming into this set. Not necessarily having bad games overall, it's just as Aggro, I think it said, coming into this. He plays around 4 people who are so consistent that if you have even one misstep, it seems like maybe you are the one that's struggling overall. Right now, this Nemesis 1-2-1, not the worst slash line for him. But definitely the one that everyone kind of keeps their eyes on with Sanguine. When he plays Thor, he's making 3 4-man dunks no problem. Here on the Nemesis, I mean, he's still making good calls as you just highlighted, so it doesn't seem to matter if his KD has to suffer at the prospect of getting Shinto ahead on Merlin.
But it is costing him a lot of his early game farm. He's about 2 levels down, 1.5, somewhere around there. And a lot of that is afforded to Obey Alliance because Sino does decide to pick up the Golden Blade, which is going to boost up your ability to clear out camps very early on. And we saw that Panatom elected to pick his up second item. But now Yarkor under some duress, inbound, looking for the dive.
Well, they're going to be able to go in. Yarkor already big. 4 members of Obey dancing around him. But they're running scared right now, as well everybody would, when you see this giant behemoth that is Cthulhu barreling down the lane at you, joining the fray. It's going to be Shinto, Rongyu stepping up. They're not able to find too much here. Maybe looking for the tower, but in terms of team fight, they're going to fall back. Obey looping back into the jungle, taking a peek at that blue buff. Panatom living ward for Sanguine right now, able to catch him out. Not able to find anything interesting that he wants, but they still want to fight. Blink up for Rongyu. Might be able to go in. That's going to be the Nim ult from Panatom. Looking to shred down inbound, but the healing's going to be good. Panatom blinks on into the tier 2 towers, looking to lock him down. Shinto gets credit for that kill. Now 4-0 is the mid laner. Ducky a little too tanky to get bullied by the rest of Sanguine here, so he's going to be able to divert under that tier 2. Netrioid with a great ult to get him out of dodge. Kraken comes through. Shinto, it doesn't care. He just takes down anyone and everyone in his way. They're still going. Rongyu loses his life, but the damage seems to be favoring Sanguine. Ducky 1 hit away, and Netrioid is going to be able to find it. A 4-for-1 trade in favor of Sanguine. Wolfie just essentially drowning in the water that is his own whirlpool, and that opens up this fire giant.
Obey makes such an interesting call there, and by interesting I mean weird, and by weird I'm going to go ahead and say it wasn't the best. Immediately they had the 5-member stack on top of Yard Force. Sure, he goes into the ultimate and you choose to disengage, but you have a 5 versus 1 situation with the immediate counter matchup with the Achilles. I don't care that Cthulhu was on 80% health there and had damage mitigation. You only need to take away about half of his health bar from there, and then Sino could immediately clean it up with his kill with the ultimate. And then instead, all 5 members of Obey completely disengage, give up their tier 1 mid tower without any defense, even knowing that Cthulhu's ultimate was already down, and then they put up a fight around their own blue buff that they were losing anyway. It just seems like they didn't know really what they were looking to defend there, and Sanguine perfectly optimized on it, take away the tier 1 tower, fire giant, a ton of kills, and now they're in a perfect position to completely blow open this game. Gold Furies respawn, and there's a ton of towers left on the map that should be easy enough for them to clear out with the buff. It's not looking good for Obey.
And you got to talk about these small moments that favor Sanguine just so well. And in my eyes, it's Netrioid. His use of his ult. I mean, he essentially just stood there as bait for Obey. And I think it was the second time this game we've seen Wowie roll in aggressively to start a fight, and then, well, ends up paying for it because he has no way to, disengage as fast. And now, even though Rong Yu doesn't have it, you've got 4 members of Sanguine grouped up, tearing down a tier 2 over here, and looking for a Phoenix. Everyone on Obey backing, and all 5 of them are going to be available, but they're not in good position just yet. So the defense isn't going to be quite ready to repel him. The Phoenix is already at half inbound. Gonna go in, look for the stun under Rong Yu, and remember it comes with Prot Shred. You can see it as the Kraken looks to break through his health bar. The snipes ringing true, but they're not gonna find their target just yet. Rong Yu still alive. Shinto as well, looking to get away, but the mid laner is going to ruin that perfect score as of right now. Taken down by Obey, but they're all low. Rong Yu looking for the CC, and Netrioid still full health and full mana, able to re-engage. Double kill for the carry, looking for more as he makes it a triple. Now trying to tear down the Phoenix. Nobody on Obey can contest this one. I don't know that they can end here, but they're going to take that fight and be happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, take a Phoenix, take a fight. If you're killing anyone that isn't Netrioid, can you really feel good about it on the side of Obey? My man was instantly able to re-engage and find a triple kill for his entire team, almost single-handedly, just shooting damage into the backs of Obey as they try to retreat back to their Phoenix that wasn't alive anymore. That's unfortunate for Obey, but that was a good defense from them. That was about as good as you could hope for. The engagement was very strong. Ducky immediately was able to get into the back line, find a multi-man knockup. Wolfie gets a fantastic Kraken and make sure that Rong Yu wasn't able to disrupt his own backline anymore. Unfortunately for Obey, they just weren't quite able to clean up any of the kills that they dropped low, and now Sanguine's going to just have free reign of the map yet again.
They're in this awkward last minute of the Fire Giant, although with this amount of control, I feel like Sanguine can do a lot with it. It's just where they focus that aggression. Doesn't seem like they're going to target this last tower, maybe push up right lane, everybody backing, farming, grabbing their own buffs, what have you here for Sanguine. But this is dangerous, Mifflin. I mean, very quickly spiraling out of control. Almost 10,000 gold in favor of Sanguine right now, and I'll admit it, they just didn't get back for that Phoenix defense in time. If they have more time to set up, do you think they have enough to bounce Sanguine off of Phoenix?
I think that Obey had a lot of ways to defend their Phoenix. They could have very easily rallied around it, as you said, if they were just there in time. It would be very hard for Sanguine to engage through Wolfie keeping the waves out, through inbound CC or Wowie's damage, especially considering he's going for the kin size Atalanta's build, meaning that even Cthulhu has to be worried about the damage coming out from this Rama. But instead, we saw that Inbound was kind of trying to push up mid lane a little bit, so he was the last one back to base, which removes their capability to use To the Skies aggressively on the defense because he just wasn't present. Sino needs the rest of his team there for him to really get any value out of this Achilles pick. He does damage, no doubt, but he doesn't do enough damage at this point in the game to set himself up for high priority executes. So far, Obey has not really been grouping up around their own defense incredibly well. They didn't really try and push the early game advantage, and instead now they're in a position where Sanguine's very easily going to be able to zone them off of this Fire Giant, as they already taken out the left side Phoenix, the hardest to defend against on a Fire Giant defense. I think it's going to be very hard for them to even justify trying to move up and take the 5-on-5 engagement in neutral territory. I think as far as Obey is concerned, they need that unofficial 6-man inside of a Phoenix if they want any shot at winning a team fight.
Well, the pressure's on for them. 20 seconds until that fire giant respawns, and right now there's not a soul to be seen of Obey, and even their side of the jungle. Inbound, the closest to it, and the rest of the team seems to be joining him. But it's just so difficult to deal with Sanguine right now. They don't have that Pyromancer giving them the speed back into the fight anymore. But obviously Netroid with his passive doesn't seem to be too worried about having a back. Vision is going to be all important. There's 3 sentry wards on the side of Sanguine here, 2 there for Obey as one gets dropped to try and control this Vision. It's the same old song and dance we've seen, but like you said, maybe not the best fight for Obey here.
And look at that left side of the map. Those fire minion waves are already starting to leech their way into the enemy base. They haven't done a very good job pushing it out, and instead they're already grouped up around Fire Giant. Obey's going to have to send someone back to keep that Phoenix alive. Sending Wolfie is a very interesting decision.
Ooh.
Sure, he's probably the fastest person on the map right now, especially considering the ability he went for, but he's also the most important tool for your team fight, and he's leaving anyway. He didn't even clear the wave.
Well, no Kraken available for the fight. Phoenix looks like it's going to respawn here, but the Titan is in a little bit of trouble. Not as much as it seems Yarkor might be in. Thorn's going to get popped here, but it's actually going to be Shinto. They're looking for the dive onto him, but Ducky going to get shredded before anything can happen. The snipes from Wowie not going to be able to find the kill that he wanted, and Shinto walks out alive. Hits more than you could say here for Sino as he gets burned down by Panatom and Yarkor. It's a 3v5. Wolfie rejoining the fight. Wowie's ult is down. Inbound has his available, but they're not going to be able to use it in time or in any fashion that is going to make a difference for him. Fire Giant goes the way of Sanguine. Luckily for Obey, they did save that left Phoenix, so at least one small win coming out of this.
They saved the left Phoenix, but at what cost? 2 members and Fire Giant for a crippled Phoenix at this point? 2 or 3 auto attacks from Netroid is all it's going to take. Even Shinto could walk up and very easily take down that Phoenix. I think sacrificing your main damage output tool for the potential to keep a Phoenix that has already been hobbled alive is a very interesting play from Obey. Now they're going to have a very hard time defending it on that side, and they're going to be forced to defend that left side Phoenix to get any value off that decision that they made earlier, meaning that they're going to be taking a defense on a Phoenix that's already weakened, so it's going to be much harder to maintain your own lives and keep it alive as well. I think Obey's only opportunity for any sort of comeback here is to fight before Sanguine is able to enter the Phoenix, go for a Hail Mary engagement right outside of Phoenix range, maybe even potentially have Inbound hiding in the back with the To the Skies, and just drop ship onto Sanguine's backline, potentially aiming for Shinto or Netroid as quickly as possible, but even then, easier said than done.
Right now, yeah, you don't even need to drop into the back line. They're kind of leading the way. Shinto and Netroid here around the same time Wrong Yu was, and they're doing a 3-2 split. Ducky going into the background, not going to be able to find anybody. A little bit of damage on a Netroid, but it's Wrong Yu right now who's standing in the forefront. Inbound, who's taking all the damage. That's going to be the lockdown. Panatom, credit for that kill, and now Obey have to turn tail and run. Wowie getting aggressed on by Wrong Yu, Panatom, and Yarkor, all of which going to be able to lock that one down, no problem. 3 members left standing for Obey. They're all in the Titan and in the Fountain, trying to stay alive, but the Titan is getting taken down here. Doesn't look like it's going to be quick work for Sanguine as they turn their eyes towards Ducky. They're looking for kills over the win, and they're going to be able to find both here as they get rid of Sino one last time. Wolfie might be the consolation prize as they look to burn down the Titan.
Wrong you, man. You can't be doing that. He literally dove into the dude's fountain to drag him out, kicking and screaming. Obey looked sloppy on these engagements, man. These team fights don't really make sense to me. Even on that last Phoenix defense, where did Bobby die? He died outside the Phoenix trying to put up that Hail Mary defense, while the rest of the 4 members of his team were standing behind the Phoenix. There's just not really any cohesion in the calls right now, and Sanguine is certainly a team that is going to absolutely punish you if you're not bringing 100%.
Yeah, you get to a late game team fight stage and make a single mistake, even if you are, your Radiances, your Ghosts, your SSGs, that's not going to look good for you. Obey here, unfortunately, losing that Phoenix a couple of times, and it ends up costing them the world. The Fire Giant fight, maybe not what they needed, but you've heard enough from us about this game. Let's go to the desk and get their input.
This is back to old form for Sanguine. They're really starting to hit that stride again after what we saw last week. If they hadn't last week, they absolutely are now. Game number 1 in the books, 28-minute win for Sanguine over Obey. Aggro still with me to break this one down. Aggro, one thing that I was very surprised about at the end of Picks and Bans And again, I don't know what you ban out or take away instead of it, but giving Shinto this Merlin, especially that far down the list, I think always surprising. Giving Jingwei over to Netrioid as well, we wondered if the Passover Freya would be a mistake, and it was anything but. The carries for Sanguine ripped through Obey here in game number 1.
And they made it look easy too, Dave. That triple kill by Netrioid on the left side, Phoenix, obviously massive. But I do think that this game was a little bit closer than it looked, at least for a while. I mean, 20 minutes in, we were pretty much even until Sanguine starts sieging that right-hand side, and Obey makes a mistake by overcommitting to the defense of that right tier 1 and blue buff, and the subsequent fight afterwards really blew the game open for Sanguine. I mean, a combined 11, 1, and 18 for the backline. Yarkor, 3, 0, and 11 was fantastic on this Cthulhu. And that's just what good teams do to you, is that they constantly, even when you're even, or even when you're a little bit ahead, they'll constantly force you to make the right decision every single time. And as soon as you make one wrong decision, they end the game. And that's exactly what Sanguine did. Wolfie's Poseidon was not effective in this game. You compare that to the raw performances of last week, it was really night and day. I think the build, I've been pretty adamant about my dislike for auto attack Poseidon, but as soon as you fall behind with this build, you become really, really useless, and that's what happened to him in this game.
Yeah, a couple of kills out of the mid lane here for Wolfie, but not much else for Obey. You know, we were surprised maybe, or not surprised, but we figured we might see here in this set a little bit longer. That Sanguine's MO is to kind of build up these small leads and then just team fight you better by the time we get into the late game. And I wondered specifically if maybe that's a point where Obey could capitalize. The recent weeks from Obey has been stronger in this early game. They've taken these early game leads, these big fights. Do you think that's something in game 2 Obey might look to capitalize on?
Sanguine, I think, has changed, though, in the sense that they're willing to scrap earlier than what they were before. You look at what they did last week up against Ghost. They were willing to scrap early and often, and it's the reason why they were able to stand tall in the face of a very strong early game team. Right here, they were even up until 20 minutes, but who's the one grouping and forcing the enemy team to answer?
Right.
It's Sanguine. I do not think this team is one-dimensional. I don't foresee them going into late games every time, trying to just be even 30 minutes in. They're finding their stride, and if they see an early advantage, they're going to take it.
That's true. Entirely fair to look at it from that perspective. I think even correct here. They'll take the fight to you if you're going to bring it to them, and that's what they do here in game number 1. Picks and bans, though, might tell a different story. We'll have to see what these two teams draft to cater to or against their play style. Remember the big ticket item in the Freya being passed over entirely pick ban-wise there in game number 1. I mean, I guess we could see it again. I'm hard-pressed to say it'll happen a second time around. But now with Obey being in that first pick slot, definitely changes some stuff up.
Very much so. Now, if you're Obey in first pick, you watch Sanguine go Cupid, Erlong, Hercules as their 3 bans. Hercules really the only one that is typical to see in that ban phase, at least in the first half. Now you've got the chance to really twist this draft to your advantage, and this is where being a good drafting team becomes very, very important, because if Sanguine's going to commit to leaving open a whole bunch of priority picks, you have to be able to punish them. And so far, Obey seemed pretty happy to fill the role of, well, we can't let these gods through, even though they are the ones in first pick. So Persephone and Yamoja, 2 gods that we've seen Obey play in the past to limited success, they decide to ban away, and Oleron as well. So you're letting Sanguine, you've done the exact same picking and banning that you did in second pick as first pick. So now this exact scenario is just absolutely worse for you. The whole reason that first pick's an advantage is because you get the number 1 pick. You get the one selection.
You get the Joe Burrow of the draft.
Maybe. We'll see if that turns out to be the right comparison there. But in this situation, you are left in a kind of awkward position. Now, they do take Cthulhu, which was the same first pick for Sanguine, and Sanguine was able to transition that into a win. But now you're giving Sanguine back-to-back strong picks. Sanguine can go Freya Nemesis. They can go there's another top pick. You can go Freya Shinto's Merlin. You can go a bunch of different things in this spot. You can do a billion different things from Sanguine's position, and I just don't know that Obey has done enough with the way that Sanguine was banning to really to capitalize on Sanguine's strategy.
It is Freya Nemesis, so that first kind of duo that jumped into your mind is exactly what's going to get locked in here. So Panatom and Netrioid already have their gods on the table. So Freya, you know, the idea, maybe it's not too unlike what we've seen teams do with this Cthulhu, where you just sit on the Cthulhu over and over and over again, put him behind, or in these fights you sunder him, melt him down fast enough to win the rest of the fight. Freya, we've seen this interesting kind of play style around where you put some pressure on the Freya early, but unless you're, you know, doing it at 2-3 times in a row, still has this feeling like she's going to catch up to you. So I wonder what Obey start to look towards that long lane with as far as pressure goes. Heimdall, one way to find some scaling for yourself there as well, a popular pick in that hunter role.
I'm wondering where that's going to go. If that's going to go towards Wowie or towards Wolfie in mid. I think, if my memory serves, Obey typically puts it in Wowie's hands, but it's certainly a flex pick. I think Heimdall can play mid lane pretty effectively. We'll see if that's where Obey wants to put it or if they want to put it in that long lane for Wowie. It depends on what he feels the matchup is up against the Freya, but no ROM is fairly telling to me. And with Sanguine Soul Ban, that signals that they think that Heimdall is going to be for Wowie.
Yeah, it's a strong start here, not only for Obey, and you get the Cthulhu and the Heimdall, but Freya Nemesis Amaterasu is what you have given up here. So now you're at a point where you're Obey. You got to wonder where most of the pressure still lands. Horus, I think, is a good start there for them. Sanguine obviously feeling maybe some mid lane pressures where we're turned around, or long lane pressure rather, with that Soul and the Jingwei now taken away up against Obey. So you wonder, depending on where this Heimdall goes, I think the story will tell us whether mid lane, long lane down the draft here. But you look towards what Sanguine still need, where, you know, we're still assuming something for Shinto. Merlin still on the table there for him. Plenty of mages that we know that he can play. Wrong, you still need something in his tool belt as well. There's a lot of power. I think Sanguine have kind of risen to the occasion here with all the power picks that are on the table and gotten 3 picks that we've seen first picked overall here as of late.
And Rongyu goes to the Mulan support. Always possible that it's Ama support, Mulan solo, but the way that Sanguine's played recently, fair to assume that's going to be Mulan support there for Rongyu. And you're really open to doing something like this, getting an aggressive physical warrior to play that support role because you have Freya as your ADC. It leaves you with still 2 magical damage dealers as long as Shinto is going to pick a mage. She's probably going to pick Merlin, by the way, because it's open again for some reason.
Right.
So that's probably where Sanguine's going to go. So they'll have plenty of magical damage between Freya and Merlin. And now you add in a lane bully in the form of Mulan to help carry Freya through that early laning phase.
And, you know, the Ra here makes some sense, and really on the back of what you were talking about earlier with this Naja pick for Sino out of the jungle. It's that lockdown and setup for that follow-up damage that's so important there. So Wolfie will have something to play out of that mid lane that has some, I don't want to call it guaranteed, but easier setup for that big ultimate. Ymir as well for inbound. I mean, there is setup there, aggro. But I think there's been an interesting debate on where Ymir stands at the moment as far as supports go. We've seen big stuns, not a lot of follow-up. We've seen good games, bad games. What do you think about Ymir and where he stands at the moment?
Ymir loses or wins really fast. There's no in between for this character. And he will be the focal point of the game, win or loss. He will either get obliterated and will be the reason, one of them, that you lose, or he'll do a billion damage, CC everyone for you, wall off of everyone, and be one of the big reasons why you win. Prayers up in the chat for Wolfie this game, man, because you've got a Nemesis, an Ama, and a Mulan that are just going to gun you down. I don't know how he stays safe against this comp. I really don't.
Sanguine, they have the hot hand after a Game 1 win. Can they make it the even 2-0? We'll find out with Gormizer and Mifflin.
Well, Mifflin, as we get into this one, every time I see a Ymir locked in, I feel like my Twitter feed right afterward was, why Ymir? And I feel like I want to touch on that, but I also want to pull in and say Wolfie had a great game here on Raw in the past, last week, even though it didn't end up becoming a dub. It was in conjunction with Sino's Naja. I mean, does this draft work for you on the way of Obey? Again, it feels very much like their style and their gods.
I think, and it's mirrored by the Ymir pick, but Obey have to win outright. If they fall behind at any point, I don't see how this composition is going to work out. Sure, you've got plenty of setup for the Ra. I mean, Sino and Wowie have ultimates that are going to set up perfectly for Wolfie. But on the tail end, they've got Cthulhu, a very strong pick, but they've also got the counter pet matchup inside of Nemesis and Freya just absolutely bullying him the second he goes into the Sense of Madness. And Inbound playing this incredibly volatile pick inside of Ymir. Sure, the top end potential is there. You can block off Rongyu and Netroid and Panatom and Yarkor with the wall because they don't have a traditional leap. But on the same end, he's also very susceptible to Freya damage. A whoop into a Nemesis ultimate, Bobby's gonna die. A whoop into just Freya damage, Bobby's gonna die. And he's gonna have to contend with this high pressure support pick inside of Mulan, matched up with the Freya, who's gonna have that constant slowing auto attacks for CC. Bobby's gonna have to play very safe inside of this lane.
The best news they have, at least, is that Freya doesn't do so great in the early game, and that's where Obey, at least historically these last few weeks, have been shining. Although we're going to have to see if that's going to come into fruition and come into play here as they at least dominate the duo lane. It's everywhere else on the map I think that's going to be of concern for them. We just saw a great game from Shinto on this Merlin, as we did a great phase 1 from Shinto, essentially almost always on this Merlin. So we'll have to see how that goes. It's actually Panatom right now. There's the whoop that you were highlighting early. There is the grab from the Mulan, but instead it's going to be Panatom. Nice double dash, gets him out of there. And Inbound, even though he looked to be dead, is going to walk away with his life. So the aggression from both teams showcased all in one quick moment.
Yeah, count your lucky stars, Inbound, that Sino showed up there, because had he been left alone, we already saw what Frey was able to do with just the 2. Tick over to level 3, no longer is he just taking out 80% of Inbound's health bar, but that would have been 100%. And we haven't even got to the power spikes, Shoes of the Magi, Ring of Akate. All of these things are going to be so hard to trade into, but I like this from Obey. Moving up here when they have a small advantage might be their best time to look for a fight.
Well, there's the whoop, the sword as well from Wowie. And they're going to be able to push Sanguine back, but they're not going to be able to successfully strip away that purple buff. Netroid picks it up as they come back into lane. Not a lot of mana left for this Freya, so maybe not the most aggressive, impactful dual lane over here. But this is maybe the one that at least has my eyes for the duration of the game, right? I mean, right now, you could absolutely bully Netroid and probably have it come out in your favor. But I'm worried for Obey in about 20 minutes? I mean, maybe not even, depending on the farm that, you know, you're able to get over here, wherever Rongyu happens to be, what Shinto is able to do, because every single god on Sanguine just ages so well with the game.
So incredibly well. You're perfectly right to point that out. But Obey also have the tools to dominate this early game. Ymir is a very strong early pick, as is Sino on this Naja. Cthulhu should be absolutely fine to be left alone on an island with Yarkor, so you don't have to dedicate any resources to the solo side of the map. If Obey play it properly, they can look to exploit Netroid very early on, but we're already seeing that Rongyu isn't rotating out of the lane, isn't leaving Netroid alone, and that is a calculated decision from Sanguine, realizing, okay, Netroid's our late game win con, might as well just make sure he gets there smoothly, and so far it's worked out very well, despite some very good pressure from Obey in the early game.
Well, now we're hitting those level 5 marks pretty much for everybody, save for the duo lane. And that's where I start to look at Wolfie, and those snipes last week were essential for Obey's somewhat control that they had on that game. I mean, they definitely made for a phenomenal highlight reel. We'll have to see if it can change something and maybe add more to this game for Sanguine. And Sino as well. One get-out-of-fight free card, I guess is the way to look at it, or one lockdown free card. If he can find the right target, Panatom is in the jungle as well. Sino kind of left out to dry. They have vision on him. The question of where Sanguine want to get aggressive. It's such an awkward fight to take, as you highlighted. Ymir has that early game advantage. And so I don't think they feel confident in themselves, even though mid is starting to rotate over as well. Shinto's here. Sash from Sino onto Netroid. Damage looking to be good. One more hit, one more kill. That's going to be first blood going the way of Sino there, as he puts down the Freya.
Interesting to see Rongyu not even try and step up and block out some of those auto attacks there. Maybe he was worried about the counter rotation from Obey. Both teams knew that 4 members were hovering around that side of the map. Rongyu already behind his tier 1 tower, just kind of watches from a distance as Sino puts Netroid in the dirt. And that's a good start from Obey Alliance. But this has been the conversation around Freya since the first time we've seen her in Phase 2. is one kill isn't enough. I don't care if Freya's 3 levels down, she's still going to outscale the second she finishes off that Ring of Akate. Right now, we're looking at 2 levels in favor of Wowie. It's how well is Obey going to utilize that lead? Are they going to decide to potentially have Wowie rotate out a lane and look for a fight in mid in the 3v3? Or are they going to continue putting pressure on the long side of the map and potentially spiral it into a Gold Fury? Either way, those are the 2 avenues of success for Obey, and Sanguine is a team that is very adept playing with these early game deficits. We said it earlier in jest that 5,000 gold down is the Sanguine lead. And if Rongyu's playing like that, you do whatever you want.
That's going to be the knock-up. Not quite connecting. The damage will be there, but the control will not. Good
Nice
beats
blink.
from Wolfie. Keeps him alive here, but like you said, great blink from Rongyu. Gets him out of there, but it doesn't seem to have saved his life. That's going to be inbound. Getting credit for that kill as he explodes with, well, just nuclear revulsion at Rongyu. Getting that deep in their jungle. You can't get away with it. So they're going to find themselves up 2-0 now on the side of Obey.
That's one of the weaknesses of Mulan. We saw that Rongyu did land the ultimate onto Wolfie. He was looking to finish up that damage, but unfortunately for him, he landed that ultimate and ended himself inside that tier 1 tower, so he took 2 or 3 tower shots there just while he was channeling out that ult. Unfortunate. If he were able to cancel it or something along those lines, sure, it would have been a much safer play. And again, he was playing as a solo agent. It seems like Rongyu's not showing very much respect to Obey right now. Didn't really have any backup there, and Obey rotate in as 3 and clean up that kill. Well played, but again, if it's not a kill on a Netroid, how valuable is it really?
I mean, maybe kind of trailing what they had at the end of last game, or continuing they had at the end of last game. Rongyu had no qualms about jumping into the fountain.
Nice freeze.
Now he's getting taken up into the sky by Sino, comes right back down where he was, and so far stays alive. No follow-up damage from Obey to find the kill. The support for Sanguine walks out with his life, no pressure seems to be found anywhere else. Even though Netroid's locked under tower, Sanguine get to walk out alive.
Fortunately for Sanguine, or maybe unfortunately for Obey, Wolfie was just slightly out of range for that ultimate, couldn't quite follow up on the Naja ult. By the time he was there, it seemed like he wasn't really willing to throw it out just in case it was going to be a miss. That's a decent play from Obey. They were able to move in, try and get the pressure onto the red buff. They find a multi-man freeze, but it doesn't really amount to much. But so far, Obey is looking much, much better in Game 2 than they were in Game 1. The pressure is cohesive. The jungler and support are working together. Inbound has got a lead on this early game god, 2 levels up on a Rongyu. That's exactly where you want your Ymir to be. But again, they have to continually find the pressure because they know that they are on a timer, considering how strong Sanguine's comp is going to be come 20 minutes.
Well, this is going to be the test, I think, for Obey. We've talked about it a lot. Early game control has actually been, honestly, synonymous with Obey, at least these last few weeks. It's whether or not they can take that and turn it into more. That is going to be the biggest question. As of right now, I mean, a 2-0 lead's nothing to scoff at. I think their aggression has been well paced. But you have to think about the people they're going up against. Sanguine have not lost since week 2, so 3 weeks of clean wins for them. The last team they faced, Mifflin, they 2-0'd Ghost Gaming last week. Kind of blew everyone's mind then. So it does make sense that everyone was voting for Sanguine as we came into this week. But it's Obey looking to maybe play upset, lockdown, Netroid. It's going to be 2 forms of stun, but that's the ult from the
Nice
Freya
damage.
up into the skies, and she's going to be able to get away with her life. There's the snipe from Wolfie, comes in, connects into the backline on the Banaton, but it's not going to be able to get the kill just yet. Inbound, nice wall, nice lockdown. Rongyu taking damage. Finally, they find someone out of all of this, but it looks like Netroid is at least going to return some of that damage. Wowie barely able to get out of there, does so alive thanks to the Bifrost, and Sanguine still lose 1 member and technically lose the fight there, but it doesn't feel like Obey are coming away with as much as they need.
I mean, the slash line is 3-0 right now, but Obey's only got about a 500 gold lead. Netroid's been largely left alone to free farm. He's been seeing a little bit of pressure, but no kills since that first one, and now he's been slowly catching up. This is only about a level and a half lead in favor of Wowie now, slightly too. I think so far Obey is doing a good job of continually trying to find pressure, but they need to see some success with it, immediately rotate into a Gold Fury. They need to be looking for constant aggression, especially considering now Sanguine's slowly starting to hit their power spikes. Boots just got finished for Panatom, Freya just finished Ring of Akate, Divine Ruin, and what is likely going to be a Sphere of the Magus coming online for Shinto as well. It seems like Obey are getting to that point where they're going to be comfortable looking for a Gold Fury, but how are they going to get to it? Are they going to look for the pick first and then group up on gold and take the 5 versus 4? Are they willing to take a 5-on-5 engagement and force Sanguine to rotate in and then take the actual fight itself? There are a lot of options available to Obey, but so far Sanguine's been doing a good job of mitigating loss.
And I feel like that level 12 threshold, specifically for the duo lane, is going to end up changing a lot of things in favor of Sanguine. So maybe another ticking time bomb there for Obey to get things going and get things rolling for them. I think it'll just make it more difficult to continue executing what they're trying to. Almost able to find the stun there is Yarkor. Ducky at about half health, and Panatom's lurking in the jungle.
Nice body blocks.
Try and get in onto this Cthulhu. Great body blocks. Locks him in place. Ducky going to go down there. Yarkor, credit for the kill. A great use of the ultimate. And, of course, your body there if you're Yarkor to lock him down. But Mifflin, you see the jungle in solo. You know exactly what to do. And Obey make that right call. They go for the Gold Fury. They'll lose out on the Pyromancer.
That's a clean play from Sanguine. I love seeing body block plays like that. Yarkor, masterfully, that's the only thing he could have done to make sure that Panatom was able to get in range and follow up on it. And then immediately they transitioned to the Pyromancer, knowing that the Gold Fury was getting pulled by Obey. So again, they're doing a good job of mitigating losses. What was a 300 gold lead just a minute ago has been cut down to 100. Obey's been able to control the pace, but they haven't been able to grow their lead at all. In fact, they're starting to slowly lose it, and now it's gone. A la Yarkor taking down that tier 1.
But Mifflin, all I can think about is really that compared to a Cthulhu in their ult, Amaterasu is the size of an ant. I mean, like it seems so tiny to be able to block something like that. So well played, I think, from Yarkor, knowing exactly how that works. He was one of the first ones we saw bringing Cthulhu into that solo lane and making it work incredibly well. Him and Finoke, I think, early adopters of it. And, well, early not banned away from them adopters of it. So they were able to showcase what it was. It's not too surprising to see him know how to play against it. The question is whether or not Obey can find something back. Sino's over here. Sash is going to be ready. But doesn't look like he wants to fight. In fact, he's trying to turn and run. Has to use that healing to stay alive here. It's not going to be enough right now to feel confident going in. Wrong you looking for the knock-up and is going to be able to get Sino back down to half. And Najah healing can only do so much thanks to your passive, and fortunately for Sino, he can't get back in, but luckily for him, it's enough to stay alive.
But Sanguine do strip away that blue buff, and already we're starting to see a lead established in that soul lane. It's now 2 levels in favor of Yarkor. Ducky falling behind. It's not too bad for him, just knowing that being this Cthulhu, he's got tankiness built into the kit. He's going to be able to rotate into the team fight and make his impact known either way. But even then, you need Obey to be finding some sort of lead on the map. And so far, Sanguine have been doing a good job of keeping pressure on the one side of the map that they've been able to win out cleanly. And the more pressure we see Yarkor exert on his side is the more space he's going to be creating for Netrioid. And again, he's been allowed to free farm for the last 6 minutes.
And unfortunately there, I think Sino looking for what could have been maybe one of the last successful ganks we might see on a Freya, and unfortunately the Sash was just off, a little too short to get done what he wanted, so the gank on the duo lane not going to work out. Now it's turning their attention to the red buff. Sash onto Panatom going to work out just well. The crits ringing true as well. Panatom low, but the ult over the wall still going to able to help them out. Wowie. Forced to run away thanks to the Bifrost. Now he is out of the fight for a while, and the damage from Netrioid can start to ring true. Good wall from inbound. Blocks off most of Sanguine, and they're actually running under their tier 2. Not confident in themselves or their ability to win this fight. Still level 8 there for Wrong You right now. 2 levels down from inbound. I think they're starting to feel it.
Look at the ultimate usage from Sanguine as well. Having committed 3 there, a small miscommunication between Yarkor and Netrioid accidentally whooping out the first tick of Yarkor's dazzling offensive, whereas Obey didn't dedicate any of their ultimates into that engagement. So I'm going to give a small shout out to Sanguine, realizing, alright, we might be able to fight in here, but Gold Fury's already dead. Pyromancer's already dead. We're not going to really be able to take down a structure because we don't have this traditional hunter. Instead, we have a Freya. So let's reset. Let's not take a risky fight for no real return, and instead wait for our ultimates to come back up and look for a further opportunity later down the line. Obey, it was really on them to look for continued aggression. Unfortunately, Sanguine disengaged very properly, so there was nothing really for them to look forward to. I think it was clean play from both sides there. Obey do come out slightly ahead, though, having invaded out those back camps, and I think the red buff, if memory serves.
Well, I'm happy to hear you mention specifically Sanguine's propensity to go for these Gold Furies after a successful fight, because the next one coming up is Sanguine's favorite. It is that Oni Fury, one that we didn't get to see last game. So maybe making big plays around this. They got a couple of Primal Furies, if I remember correctly, in Game 1. So now something that can change the tide or the pace, either more so in favor here for Obey, who has actually lost that gold lead to, again, a very small amount, but we saw what Sanguine were able to do with a couple hundred gold last game. They really need something like this to make sure they can kind of remain with their feet underneath them before they get swept away by the likes of Wrongyu or Ducky, since he feels confident rotating over. Gonna go into the ult here to dodge the freeze from inbound, finds the stun onto Wolfie. There's not much this lone Amaterasu is going to do. It's the cavalry behind her that's gonna make the difference. Just out of dodge is gonna be Ducky inbound as well, gonna be safe. But it's Sino right now who's feeling the full damage now of Netrioid. Sino finishes that hasten ring and is going to be able to do as much as he wants with everything going on. This Freya has hit that power spike that if you were an Obey fan, you were worried about.
Man, Netroid said, oh, you're going to let me free farm for a little bit? This is what happens when that happens, and he immediately solos out Sino. And now I imagine we'll see Sanguine continue to look for that aggression. Maybe they're going to play a little bit more cautious, knowing that they did have to commit that Valkyrie's discretion, but they do find Obey in their jungle.
Well, right now it's a good knock-up from Wrongyu, looking to try and control everybody, but now he's the one out of sorts. 4 members of Obey take down the level 10 support, and I think you can still walk away calling that a win. They're going to start up this Oni Fury, though. This is where things get dangerous. We know Sanguine love themselves an Oni Fury, and they love themselves some Oni Fury steals. Panatom in the area with this Nemesis. Going to have his dashes forced out, though. That's going to go ahead and kill that one right where it's sat. Ducky even looking to teleport across the map. And now with this Oni Fury, there should be some good pressure from Obey about to come out.
It was interesting to see how Sanguine degrouped off of that pick onto the Naja. Immediately, Yarkor returned to solo lane. Panatom went back to farming that right side jungle as well. Had they decided to use their advantage and move in towards the gold free, they likely would have been able to burn it just because of Freya damage, because of Hekate and his other rings available to them. There's so much damage left on the board, but instead they maneuver through the jungle a little bit split up. It's about a 4-on-4 engagement when they did actually have the man advantage, and instead they lose out on the fight, and Obey immediately optimize on it and go into the gold free for themselves. Only 2 members left from Sanguine on that side of the map means that there's really no defense potential. I was surprised to see that from Sanguine. A bit uncharacteristic to see them not really try and optimize off of one pick. We were just talking about earlier how they love to go for that Oni Fury, but instead it's going to be Obey that walk away with it.
Well, now we'll have to see, well, if they can find anything. I mean, most of those waves typically change the pace of the game, but they're still down by 1,000 gold here. It seems actually like Sanguine have maybe come out even further ahead now after that Oni Fury fight, which feels a little weird. It just slowly siphons away from Obey here. I think they've been holding on very well, but it is going to be these groupings, these 5v5 fights. We haven't gotten to see a true one yet. Wowie and Netrioid may be rotating in a little bit slower than everybody else. I think we're going to start seeing them online a little bit more often in the next 2 or 3, as well as Shinto now hitting that power spike. I mean, who's going to make the difference? Do you think Obey, I mean, we talked about this being a strong early game draft, do they still have, you know, a 20-minute team fight in them, or is it just going to crumble?
They have the potential to split up the engagements if Bobby is able to find really good walls, which he's been doing pretty consistently so far this game. And he's also been performing incredibly well. No deaths, 2-0-1 on the Ymir. But the damage potential that is going to be returned onto him, to whoever he decides to split off, is going to be much harder to deal with now. This level 12 Ymir is going to be staring down the barrel of a level 17 Freya, a level 18 Yarkor on Amaterasu. Yeah. Nemesis's ultimate is going to be fantastic for stripping defense. I really think Obey were on a timer, and they haven't quite hit it just yet.
Well, Obey's bluff gonna get called right there. Sino tries to get aggressive, but Netrioid looking to not only ward off 2, maybe even find a kill onto Sino in the duo lane as the tier 2 and right lane gets taken by his compatriots. Sanguine looking to be able to walk away. Again, gold lead starting to amass for them. Ducky, unfortunately, not having the impact that you want out of a Cthulhu. It's going to be these crits. Wrongyu now over here with Netrioid. Looks like the lockdown is going to be almost good enough on the Yarkor, but not good enough in totality. He's going to walk away with his life for now. Wrong Yu trying to get aggressive. Good whoop coming out from Netrioid. They're going to get aggressive, and Shinto, Panatom have rotated on over to get rid of the Hunter for Obey. Wowie is going to take a little nap here for the next 50 seconds, and Obey have to figure out what they want to do. There's no Primal Fury available, so Sanguine don't have anything to latch onto immediately. It seems like they're happy with that trade. Even though they only get one kill, they do find themselves starting to take control.
That was a huge overstay from Wowie on that tier 2 tower over there. And maybe this is results-oriented analysis, but Yarkor able to absorb the attention of 3 members, intentional or not. It stopped Wolfie, it stopped Inbound and Ducky from rotating over to that fight, allowing Sanguine to get that 4-on-2 engagement on the duo side of the map, immediately allowing for Freya to re-engage from base, get her beads back up if she so chooses. The Valkyrie's Discretion is going to be available soon again as well. Sanguine are doing a good job of diverting Obey's attention throughout these multiple engagements, and they're coming out ahead every single time. This is the first large gold lead that we've seen of the game, nearly 3,000, approaching 4,000 gold. Sanguine are really starting to hit their peaks right now. They're rapidly approaching level 20. A lot of them have got their second relics available as well. Things are starting to look really good for Sanguine, and things are going to get worse for Obey as time goes on.
You know, I was just looking through the slash lines, and I want to give some credit where credit's due. Inbound 2-0-1, we don't really get to see a lot of phenomenal Ymirs coming through lately. I mean, we've seen him a lot, and some great walls, some great freezes, but usually the slash line by the end of the game looks a little different than what we're seeing right now. And granted, we're only 21 minutes in, so there's plenty of time for things to change, but I think it bears mentioning, while it is a positive force and a positive factor here for Obey, things have been going well for him. We'll have to see if this continues. As, well, they're going to start up this Pyromancer. Inbound with a beautiful wall. It's going to be able to lock away Sanguine, but unfortunately, it locks up Ducky. They go all in right there and lock him down like it's nothing. Now they're looking for Sino. That's going to be one more hit from Panatom, and credit for the kill goes his way. No Pyromancer taken. Another great wall from Inbound, but it only saves you from the first threat, not the second. Panatom looking to try and lock him down. A good blink from Inbound got him away from the damage, and it looks like these last 3 members for Obey will stay alive. It's going to cost him a Fire Giant.
Vanish into Retribution combo immediately puts Ducky into the dirt before he's even allowed to finish channeling his dash. He's already dead, and that's what I was talking about earlier when I said that, sure, this Cthulhu's gonna be good because of the nature of being Cthulhu, but they allowed Sanguine to take these 2 perfect counter picks. I mean, the deep bench shred from Nemesis Ult alone is enough to make it a little bit harder to be Cthulhu, but pair that with Netriode on the Freya just putting out buco damage. I mean, good luck to Ducky being a frontliner at any point, unless he's going to have Inbound absorbing all of that, but he'll just bear a similar fate.
Well, that's going to be a Primal Fury now here for Sanguine, and maybe just enough gold. Netrioid's looking to try and finish off what looks like a Typhon's Fang here pretty soon. It's just scary, the amount of power this Freya is going to have coming forward. Everyone's level 20, save for Wrong Yu, as you were highlighting. Wolfie's still trailing behind. Everybody on Obey trailing behind. I was ready to start reading some names that were going to be on par, but I guess I got ahead of myself there. As Sanguine definitely are taking the reins now. Shinto's still undying. Last time around, we saw that change around to Phoenix. It was almost the same game state. Only 3 towers up here for Sanguine this time. Doesn't seem like they're going to slow down at all, though. Left Tier 1 going to go down. Mid Tier 2 under pressure already. Looks like Ducky's going to be teleporting in, but I don't know that Obey have much to work with. A good sash, but come on, Yarkor doesn't care.
Yeah, Yarkor is not dying to just one man, Sino. You might as well bring the whole squad. You're going to need Wowie's damage as well, but it seems like he's dedicating some time to trying to split push out, forcing out Yarkor's teleport to defend that Tier 2 tower. That was a very long usage of the Bifrost from Wowie on that side of the map, meaning that he's very likely not going to have his escape available to him for at least another 30 seconds. Sanguine don't seem like they're really willing to push down that Phoenix right now, instead pushing down the Tier 2, take out every single piece available to you, or maybe just keep Obey rotating through the map, see if you can find a pick.
Well, based on what I hear outside right now, it seems like Sanguine are ready to bring the Thunder and start taking down the base for Obey, but they're going to play it slow. They take that last Tier 2. They're going to back off. Still 1.5 minutes, just a little over there for the Fire Giant buff. And so they're going to be able to still make some work on a Phoenix. They finish off those final items, and I don't know, Mifflin. I'm starting to get a little scared if I'm Obey here. Spectral Armor for Wrong You makes it harder for Wowie to find some return damage. You get that Typhon's Fang for Netrioid. It feels almost like a slippery slope. How is Obey's Phoenix defense? Is it enough that they can bounce Sanguine back and keep themselves alive?
Obey has the capability to defend Phoenix relatively well. Cthulhu's got a decent knock-up chain that's going to be able to keep people at bay. The melee auto-attackers on the side of Sanguine are going to have a much harder time locking down the back line. Inbound can wall off any sort of corridor and make it much harder to make contact with the Phoenix. Wowie, if he's allowed to, is still absolutely chunking with these auto-attacks. This crit Heimdall build is going to be swinging for the fences, truthfully. And Sino, if he's able to just find that priority ultimate, just get a sneaky, cheeky little ultimate on the Netrioid, followed up with Wolfie's ultimate, very likely going to eliminate that initial threat from Sanguine. But even then, we're looking at a 13,000, 12,000-ish gold lead in favor of Sanguine. We're looking at the exact same experience just about. It's a lot that they're going to have to work through. I think Obey, if they get split up at all, if they're not able to Voltron together and make full use of the entirety of their composition, it's only going to get that much harder. And Yarkor, no one man on the side of Obey is going to be able to stop Yarkor. I don't care if you send Ducky. I don't care if you send Ducky and Wowie. Yarkor has been an absolute menace in the backline to 5 members. It's going to be so hard for them to stop this push.
Has been insane how easily Yarkor has just kind of blown off anybody that decides to get aggressive to him. Much like now, I mean, he's under the Phoenix over there in mid. Sino looks to rotate over with Ducky, but the last time we saw that happen, didn't make a big difference to him. Left Phoenix going to have some trouble for it. There's going to be a good snipe, but just off the mark is the follow-up from Wolfie. The freeze wasn't enough to lock him down. So Sanguine not only walk alive, but they're also going to be able to re-engage now. No worry of the damage coming back their way. Inbound, burned down before anybody on Obey can reply. And now Ducky, torn between 2 worlds, needs to be the frontliner for his team is left, but he needs to be the one over here stopping Yarkor. Mid-Phoenix gonna get taken by the solo laner for Sanguine, and that's the go button to me, Mifflin. They want to go ahead and get in, but it seems like they're playing this cautious. Fire Giant's gone. They don't want to risk it.
Yeah, Sanguine never makes the risky play, Gore. I mean, if Fire Giant wears off, you know they're backing off as well. But luckily, Sanguine were able to take out that middle Phoenix through the efforts of Yarkor almost. I'm not going to say almost. It was single-handed. Yarkor did it all on his own, despite Ducky trying his best to stop that push. And all of that is allowing the rest of Sanguine to find that pick on the inbound on the left side of the map. Doesn't quite result in the left side Phoenix because they are lacking in traditional Hunter damage, instead of taking this Freya. But now Fire Giant's respawning. In about 2.5 minutes, it'll be an enhanced Fire Giant. Luckily for Obey, it is that middle Phoenix that goes down, so they'll be able to very easily push that out and try and make a defense around this Fire Giant if they so choose. But we already saw that they weren't quite able to stand up with that unofficial 6-man inside of a Phoenix. How are they going to fare in a true 5-on-5 engagement on neutral territory? It's going to take a miracle. It's going to mean Bobby has to find the perfect wall to separate 1 member from 5 on Sanguine. Ducky's going to have to get a fantastic CC chain. I'm still looking for that Naja and Ra ult combo to line up at all. Has that even happened once this game? Not in my memory. Or maybe even the reverse, do it with Wowie. But so far, this Ra hasn't gotten much utility out of these ultimates because the setup really hasn't been there.
I mean, that was the talk of the town last week. I mean, it was 4-0, I believe, at one point for Wolfie. He looked phenomenal. And so far, we haven't seen any of that same level of play. Good grapple from Wrong You, but no kills to follow it up right now. Sanguine just kind of dipping their toes in the water, see how hot it is. And Obey maybe coming up lukewarm at best as of right now. It doesn't seem like Sanguine are too worried about it. They do back off of the Fire Giant, though. And once again, I feel like we should have something in position for every time Yarkor does not seem to care about the members of Obey getting aggressive into him, because he's just chilling in solo lane as the aggression starts out. And there's that combo you wanted to see. Sino goes up with Netrioid, and Wolfie takes him down. But the question is, can you follow up the rest of it? It's going to be Wolfie, who is low right now, looking for that last hit, and Wrong You going to be able to get credit for the kill. But Sanguine, they're all low. They get rid of Wowie. Inbound finds Panatom. The jungler going to be gone along with the carry for Sanguine, but they still got Shinto, and they still have Yarkor. That's going to be enough, and it's Wrong You, of all people, finding himself a double kill, moving things forward. Ducky, last man standing for Obey, and it doesn't look like he's going to be standing long. Mid-Phoenix, fire minions are there. They're going to be able to run this down mid. This looks like a Sanguine win.
Yeah, that's a dub right there. I mean, 30 seconds left on the nearest respawn. Wrong You stopped after he killed Sino while there were still members of Obey alive, to drop the fatty laugh spam just to do massive mental damage. He knew he was going to win the game on the tail end of it, and that's after, in game 1, dragging someone out of their own fountain. Wrong, you stop, man. Be nice. Be a good guy. This is so toxic.
That is, in my eyes, that's the SMITE equivalent. You know, you beat your opponent in a duel. Let's say you had some ease with it because that's what Sanguine did. And then he just starts kind of twisting the blade around just in case they didn't feel the fact that they were stabbed. Like, it is a little bit of spice on top there from Sanguine, but that is 4 wins in a row for him now, Mifflin. They're looking like they're back, at least on their rise to the top.
I mean, they look good. I mean, even if you take a peek at the charts from last game, it was even, just steady. Oh, 20 minutes. Sanguine's on the rise. Let's go. We're going straight up because that's exactly what their strategy is. And Obey played into it both games. It seems like they weren't willing to put any aggressive pressure on the map. And you think Sanguine isn't just happy to farm for the first 20 minutes? If there's any team in the league that would just eliminate early game, if it were up to Sanguine, they would load into every single match at level 15. Like every single player, so they could just group up as 5 immediately. And Obey essentially just let them do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're more than happy with the way that ended up happening. Again, they're not going to take a fight unless you force them, and unfortunately, they weren't able to force enough there for Obey. They go down 2-0 here as Sanguine continues their streak. So let's go up to the desk and have them break down game number 2.
Always appreciated Gordon, Mifflin, the writing a little bit on the wall, I think, here for this one. The draft for Sanguine just way too strong across the board from top to bottom, and as such, Sanguine able to clean up the game, clean up the set in about 30 minutes time here in game number 2. Aggro, you know, we kind of knew. The Freya got let through. You know, the rest of the draft for Sanguine just looks so strong. Shinto got to last pick this Merlin again. All that being said, a complete team performance is what it took for Sanguine to get the job done.
Top 3 going Nem, Freya, Ama. Pretty good. And then Shinto gets Merlin, and that's pretty good as well, it turns out. Look, like I was saying during the drafting phase, I think Obey just was not prepared for what Sanguine was going to do in the drafting phase today. And then, frankly, the way that they executed on the field wasn't too bad at times, but ultimately, despite off to a very, very good start, they never got a tangible lead. Wowie was down, or up 2 levels, excuse me, on Netrioid. Netrioid was down significantly in that lane. That's exactly what you want to happen. But the overall map was not going Obey Alliance's way. Yarkor was just dominant on this Ama. No one could match what he was doing in these team fights. He and Panatom worked so well together in order to get the ball rolling. And another tough performance from Wolfie, and this one I blame less on him because, like I said during the draft, Nem, Ama, Mulan, I just don't know if that's the raw pick that you want there.
Here's some highlights of Netrioid as well. Yeah, I mean, you look at the state of the scoreboard here, 16 minutes in. Up until that kill for Netrioid, Obey were in the lead as far as kills go. And then again, to your point, Aggro, just not so much in the gold department. That's sort of been this problem we've seen where Obey can get these skirmishes and then just not push the map really to their advantage. Of course, very difficult to do up against a Sanguine squad. This was kind of that first fight where the gold lead kind of boiled over and gave Sanguine the full-on lead here in this game. You know, I wonder how much stock, Aggro, you put in this Ymir pick. Not so much as the reason it won, the reason it lost, whether inbound looked good or bad. How much do you take away now as another data point for why Ymir might be good, might not be good, or do you still kind of stand by what you figured before? He wins or he loses, and you find out very quick which way it's going to be.
I think we have seen less of that clear snowball because of Ymir on either side. We're just seeing too much of this god, man. I mean, he can be good against the right draft. I don't know exactly what his win percentage is, but I don't think it's very good. And I don't know why teams keep picking him in the slots that they do to really highlight this pick. I mean, it just has not looked impressive for pretty much every selection we've seen it. It's time to find a new Guardian, everyone. Ymir is not working.
And maybe not Ymir time anymore. It is Wrong You time, though, for Wrong You and the rest of Sanguine here. 2-0 win over Obey. Get themselves right back in that top 3, top 4 conversation. Standing by, quick post-game interview.
Well, that's right. I'm here with Rongyu. And Rongyu, I just want to ask you, Sanguine, with that, you've now got 4 set wins in a row. How you feeling?
Yeah, it feels pretty great to win a game because I think we start the season pretty rough, but I think we're just having the momentum again. So it feels pretty great to win a game.
Well, I know all of the Sanguine fans in chat are always happy to see the momentum come and back you guys, especially because in Game 2, it seemed like you were starting to fall behind a little early on, but then the Mulan, especially as you got there in the late game, made some huge swings. Were you guys ever worried in comms that things weren't going to go your way?
Yeah, I personally hate facing with Freya because you can bully her so easily, and they have Ymir, and it was like 4-man in our buffs, and Freya was level 4, I think. So it's kind of annoying because, I mean, it doesn't matter if I went, I don't know, I see Banus or whatever, I will get in bait because I have Freya. But yeah, we basically just figured out like what they're doing, just try to focus our side of the map and get the W.
Well, hey, it ended up working out exactly the way you wanted it to, so you planned appropriately and you played appropriately. And your next couple of sets going into next week are going to be Renegades and Space Station. So how's the team feeling really looking towards the future right now?
I mean, right now we're just trying not to win again, like stop losing and just focus more and see what happens because we can't predict the future, just gonna be dependent on us.
Well, I know everyone's excited to see it. I'm excited to see it, and hopefully we'll have some more. But hey, man, congratulations on your win. Thank you for your time. We're going to go back up to the desk to close out the day.
Thank you.
That's right, always good vibes from the Sanguine house there. So big congrats to them for finding the 2-0 over Obey today. I think if you ask me what we're seeing here on this Friday, especially when you have Ghost versus Radiant starting off the day, I'm not expecting back-to-back 2-0s here, Aggro.
It was a quick one, and we didn't expect it to be that way, especially for that first set, as you mentioned. It really impressive stuff by Radiance. I think that's the big takeaway from potentially this whole weekend. We've already learned it, is that Radiance is the team to beat in the SPL right now, except for,
That's right.
again, maybe SSG, but then Ghost beat SSG really badly, so who knows? I don't know. Sanguine's looking real good, too. Don't forget about them. I think we're looking at a really good Phase 2 so far.
Sanguine starting to pick up their pace as well. Here's your standings after day 1 of week 5 of Phase 2. Radiance up on top. Space Station will have a chance to tie up that first spot a little bit tomorrow. Still that close gap, 5, 6, 7 there. United, a chance to get a win on the board as well over that SSG team. So actually, that's a pretty important one, I think, for both of those squads tomorrow, Aggro. SSG trying to keep pace with that top spot. United trying to get something going here for themselves as an United team that has had some close games against these higher-up teams. You think of a 3-game set earlier on in the phase. But PK versus Renegades to start off the day on Saturday. So should be some fun ones there for sure.
Very much looking forward to that first set, especially both those teams sitting at 2 and 4 with PK and Renegades. Those are going to be very, very close games and can really set the tone for either one of those teams moving forward.
That's right. Well, that is it for this Friday here in the SPL. On behalf of myself, Aggro, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peach it.